Hey friends, welcome back to Christian Podcasting Secrets. I'm your host, Tammy Munson, and today we're talking all about social media and how to engage your audience using it. Whether social media feels like your best friend or your biggest headache. We are going to unpack it all today. I've got some practical tips for you, some strategies, and a little biblical wisdom to help keep us grounded. So, grab your favorite beverage, your notebook, and let's dive in. Social media. We love it. We hate it. Okay, maybe it's just that I do. It is not my favorite thing, but it's one of those things we need to do to market our podcast, to engage with the community that we are growing because of our podcast. So the question is, why does it matter? Does it matter? Sure, we all know it's a great place to share content, but the real power of social media is the connection it allows with us to make with our listeners. Your podcast is your voice, but social media is where your audience gets to communicate with you, engage with you, and give you the feedback that you need to make your show better. So social media is really where your audience can connect with you outside of your episodes. So when I decided to bring back the podcast and we rebranded it under Christian Podcasting Secrets, and I started posting about it on Instagram, I shared a quote from one of those first few episodes, and one listener commented on how it had really spoken to her that day. And I didn't expect it because I had been gone for 8 months. But what followed was a conversation in the comments. And before I knew it, she was DMing me about her faith journey and what she was going through at the time, a really difficult season for her as well. And we had a whole entire conversation about that and many conversations that followed. But that connection, that conversation simply would not have happened if I had only released my episode without engaging with everyone on social media. Social media is where we carry these conversations forward. It can lead to meaningful moments that go so far beyond a like, a download, or maybe even a review. It's also the place where we can extend our reach. It takes what you've got and it multiplies it. Because when someone shares your post, they introduce you to their entire circle of friends. And that's the beauty of social media. It allows you to reach new people who may not have found your podcast otherwise. It's like an invitation to the table for more listeners. But before we get into all the strategy, the tips, all the things, I want to be really clear about something. So let me say this. You do not have to post on social media multiple times a day. Let me say that again. You do not have to post on social media multiple times a day, every single day, to engage with your audience. Now, can I get an amen? I know it feels like everyone is posting 24/7, but trust me, consistency matters way more than frequency. If you're feeling pressured to keep up, remember, quality beats quantity every single time. So instead of burning yourself out trying to post constantly, focus on posting content that truly adds value to your audience. Whether it's once a week or a couple of times a week, make sure your posts are meaningful, engaging, and authentic. Your listeners aren't going to disappear if you don't post every single day. Trust me, I know. We do not post every day. What matters is this. When you do post and you show up, it's worth their time. You're going to get high quality content. With this, it's important to create a schedule that works for you. Maybe you post 3 times a week. Maybe you choose Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example. That's enough to keep your audience engaged without overwhelming yourself. And like I said, consistency builds trust. We talked about that last week on the show because they know when to expect you. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Because if social media is starting to feel like a burden, I want you to take a step back. I'm giving you permission to do that. We need to rest in God's plan and remember it's okay to take things at your pace. You're not running a marathon. You're building a community, and that takes time, not just constant posting. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about where you need to be for social media. There are so many social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and X, and it's easy to feel like you need to be on all of them. But, my friend, here's a spoiler alert. You don't. Yep, I said it. In fact, I look at it this way. You get in where you fit in. The key here is choosing the platform that works best for you and where your audience is most active. Okay, let's look at Instagram. It's a great platform for visual storytelling, especially if your audience enjoys seeing behind the scenes moments, inspirational quotes, maybe a reel or a funny meme. So a few months ago, one of my clients wanted to engage more. She wanted to do more on social. So what we did is we started sharing short devotional thoughts through Instagram Reels. And at first she said, Tammy, nobody's going to want to watch these. But those Reels, those 30-second clips started getting more engagement than her regular posts. It showed her that her followers loved quick, impactful content that they can watch on the go. What about Facebook? If your listeners love the deeper conversations, the deep dive, the back and forth conversation, Facebook might be where you want to focus. I have found that Facebook groups are a really fantastic way to build community. So last year, we implemented a strategy for a podcast client by creating a private group for listeners of her podcast. And friend, let me tell you, it has been amazing to watch how many people pray for each other, share their stories, discuss her episodes. And it's more than just the quote unquote like button. It has become a space where real connections happen. So where do you start? I would recommend 1, maybe 2 platforms to start with. I know it's tempting to be everywhere, but it's better to focus your energy where you and your audience feel comfortable. Because remember, consistency is key, and you'll have a lot more fun engaging on platforms where you can be you. Remember the authenticity and the consistency pieces I talked about on last week's episode? It's exactly that. So start small. Pick 1, maybe 2 platforms and grow from there. Because when you're faithful in managing your time and your presence on these platforms, I guarantee you, God will bless your efforts as those audiences grow. Now let's get to the part where the magic happens. Creating content. If there's one thing that I've learned over these last many years, it's that social media is more than just promoting your latest episode. You want to create content that adds value and builds engagement. That's what we're talking about today, right? Building engagement. One of my favorite types of content is shareable quotes. People love to share things that inspire them, that motivate them, that encourage them. And honestly, it's a really simple way to give them a bite-sized takeaway, something that they're going to remember. When I started looking at Coming Back and episode 101, I posted a quote from it. And episode 101 is Stepping into Your Calling. And that post got shared over 100 times. Why? Because it resonated with people. So pull out a meaningful or impactful nugget of wisdom from your episode. It could be a video, an audio, or even just some text over a colored background. Something really simple. And it's likely to travel far beyond your original intended audience. Another thing that people love, behind the scenes content. Because it makes them feel like they're a part of your world. And no, I am not going to sing on this episode today. One time I posted a video of myself recording my podcast. Nothing fancy, just me, my Rode microphone, my computer, and my notes for the episode. And I got so many comments back like, I thought you had this big professional audio studio, or I love that you're just like me. Yes, absolutely. And yes, I record in my home office. Now, I'm a tech girl, so I've got a lot of fancy equipment, but that's because I love what I do. But the key about all of this is that your audience loves getting a sneak peek. So don't be afraid to show those real life moments. Social media is filled with highlight reels, the best of the best. Don't be afraid to show the realities of podcasting. Your mic is connected, but it's not recording anything. The platform that you use to record is not working the way that it should. Don't be afraid to share that content as well. Now, another type of content that always does really well, especially for Christian podcasters, is Bible verses that tie into the theme of your show or that particular episode. So let's say you're discussing joy in one of your episodes. You post a verse like Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 10. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And you share a quick thought about that. Now, not only does this encourage your followers, but it helps keep the focus on God's word, which, friend, is exactly why we're here in the first place. Now, the tip to all of this is you need to plan your content in advance. I would recommend a content calendar to organize your posts. That way, you're not scrambling last minute to try and figure out, what should I post? What type of content? Did I do that already? Plus, it helps me stay consistent with sharing valuable content throughout the week. Okay, we've talked about how to develop great content. So let's talk about how to engage with your audience. Social media is meant to be social. This is where the back and forth happens. Now, I know I see a lot of podcasters, and I am not calling out any one person, but I see a lot of podcasters out there. All they do is post about their episodes. And even if they are delivering other types of content, they're not engaging with there. It's a one-way conversation. No, it needs to be a two-way conversation. Engagement is the key to all this. One time I posted an episode and a listener messaged me almost immediately after I shared the post, and she said how much it helped her. And I replied to her. And that little quick conversation turned into a prayer request. And y'all, it showed me just how powerful responding can be. So don't underestimate the impact of replying to comments or direct messages. It's how you show your audience that you're just not talking at them. You're talking with them. You want to get to know them. You want to engage with them. You want to establish community with them. Instagram and Facebook stories are a fantastic way to engage with your audience with quick, fun updates. I love using polls or asking questions in my stories to get feedback. Live videos are another awesome way to connect in real time. A while back, so one way that you can do this is go live on Instagram for a Q&A. Maybe you're talking about fear or dealing with a particularly hard season or your own faith journey, whatever it is. I guarantee you, your audience will feel like they could ask you anything, and it's going to deepen that connection. Plus, it's fun. You don't have to worry about editing. Because engaging with your audience isn't just about promoting yourself or your podcast or whatever products and or services you have. It's about serving others and building a relationship. And when you take the time to listen and respond, you're showing your audience that they matter. So make sure that you set aside some time for engagement. Even if you're responding to comments or messages 15 minutes a day can make a huge difference. I guarantee you're going to be on social media looking at things anyway for more than 15 minutes. This way, you don't get overwhelmed and your audience feels valued. Finally, let's talk about how to turn your social media followers into regular podcast listeners. You've got their attention. How do you get them to click the play button? One way is teaser episodes. I would recommend using a short audio clip, a video clip, or a quote from the episode before it airs. You can do it after as well. For example, let's say you're talking about faith in uncertain times. Well, that's us in this moment in time, right? You could post a snippet that leaves people wanting a little bit more. It's kind of like a movie trailer for your podcast. Now, we do trailers all the time in the beginning of our podcast, but we don't really think about that as we go along. You want to give your audience just enough information to spark their curiosity, but not so much that they feel like they've already heard the whole thing. I would recommend teasing an episode, share a 30-second clip of maybe a really powerful testimony, and you're going to see that people are going to flood your DMs. Now, we did this with a client, and her DMs were flooded with people saying, I need to hear this right now. And that's exactly what you want. You want to build that anticipation. Now, the other thing is I want to make sure that you're including a clear call to action in all of your posts. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week. But if you're sharing a quote or a clip from your episode, you want to make sure that you're saying something like, catch the full episode here with a link. It sounds really simple, right? But you'd be surprised how many people forget to ask their audience to actually listen. Don't be afraid to do that. Find your inner dude. Dudes do that all the time. Listen to my show. Women, we tend not to, but we need to. And you can get really creative with your call to action. Encourage your followers to tag a friend who might need to hear this message, or ask your followers a question that ties directly into your episode topic. If you're paying attention, you'll see this all the time on social media from other social media influencers, your favorite podcaster, etc. And this is because it creates engagement and it nudges them even closer toward hitting the play button. Now, another way to guide your followers to your episodes is by using Instagram highlights or pinned posts on Facebook. So what you do is you save all your podcast trailers and sneak peeks and any of those types of things into a highlight called podcast, whatever you want to name it. That way, anyone who visits your profile can instantly see what your show is about and catch up on any episodes they may have missed. You want to make it easy for people. Make it easy for them to find your content. Now, if you're using Instagram, you can use the ManyChat service to direct people with a direct link in their DMs. We use this all the time on Wildfire Creative. You may have seen it. Drop the fire emoji, comment 52 tips, all of those types of things. That's using that service. Anybody that does that, they link directly in your DMs, and then we can continue having conversations. We can continue that engagement. And y'all, it works so much better than the link in bio and other services like that. It's kind of on its way out. Okay, one bonus tip here before we wrap up this episode. All those older podcast episodes that you have, you want to repurpose them. Repurpose them for content for social media. So let's say you recorded a 30-minute episode. Doesn't matter what the topic is. You take that episode and there's multiple ways to break that episode down, multiple pieces of content on social media. You could create quote graphics, short videos, or a blog post. And this keeps your content fresh and gives your followers multiple ways to engage with it. I would recommend using older episodes all the time. Get fresh eyes and ears on it, depending on what type of podcast that you have. 100% recommend this. Okay, friend, that is a wrap, but I want you to remember this. Engaging with your audience through social media does not have to be a chore. It could be fun and rewarding and impactful and purposeful. Whether you're sharing quotes or posting behind the scenes or engaging with your followers through stories or live videos, remember that each interaction is an opportunity to reflect Christ's love. Let's commit our social media efforts to Him and watch how He uses them to grow our platforms and deepen our relationships with our audience. So thank you so much for listening. If you have found today's episode helpful, would you do me a favor and share it? Leave a review if you're so inclined, or just tag me on social. I love connecting with each and every one of you and seeing how you engage your audience online. So until next time, I want you to keep your eyes on Jesus and keep creating with purpose. So have a great week. I'll talk with you next Wednesday. Bye, y'all.